Hey everyone, so real quick, the content creator support actually refreshed. So if you did not extend your support and you want to continue supporting my channel, you have to go back in and re-support. So you got to go in and you got to look up my name under the supporter category here, connect with a creator, and then type in Zep YouTube. If you do that, then you can continue your support for me if you want to. Just wanted to throw it out there. So thanks again. Hey everyone, and welcome back to another King Arthur Legends Rise video. So in today's video, guys, we're going to be talking about chivalries for rares and which ones actually matter. Which are the ones that kind of unlock the full potential of these rares. I know a lot of people really love summoning in these games. I get it. The gambling, the dopamine, it kind of gets to you, right? And obviously, this has cultivated in a whole genre of games. Like, this wasn't really a thing until like 10 years ago, whenever Summoner's War, took the world by storm, I guess, and has just persevered throughout all of this, and it's developed into a bunch of these games like Raid Shadow Legends, like Epic 7. Yeah, summoning's a big thing. However, I will say that some of the rares in this game, they really don't need a whole lot of copies. And we'll eventually do a video on legendaries. The thing is I'd like to be a little more well-versed in the legendaries with their chivalries before I make a video on that. I don't have a whole lot of legendaries with high chivalries, so I don't want to speak on something that I don't have a whole lot of experience in. Now, when it comes to the rares, some of those experiences are also lacking with certain heroes, so we're going to have to make some assumptions. But I hope you guys will give me the benefit of the doubt there whenever I'm making this list. This is also just my opinion. If you guys, see something that I kind of missed or disagree, put it in the comments below. I'd really appreciate it. But with that being said, let's get into the list. So we're going to start with K. K has... one last thing. Obviously, if your character is Chivalry 10, that's going to be the best possible thing, right? You can't underestimate these stat boosts. These are also extremely important. The very last upgrade, everyone gets this element compatibility. This is also a huge upgrade. It decreases your total damage taken whenever you're of a positive affinity. So if K is Storm and she's going up against a Frost boss or enemy, she'll take 5% less damage and she'll do 5% more raw damage. That's a great chivalry. But the point of today's video is what unlocks a character to really take them a step above where they were before they had that chivalry. So with that out of the way, now we can get into it. So for K, I truly underestimated this Chivalry 8. I think this is an absolutely amazing chivalry. On paper, it looks a little like, okay, that seems okay. It's this Golden Boar's Resolve, and anytime she evades, she gives herself one of these Golden Boar's Resolve buffs. And what that does is it grants her 3% evasion rate. So when I read that, I was just like, okay, yeah, whatever. But if she has 3 or more when she starts to attack, so let's say she evades 3 times and she gets 3 of those Golden Boar's Resolves, she then gets an additional turn. She'll remove all of those stacks of Golden Boar's Resolve, but by that time, she is spiraling. K does a lot of really good damage. I think a lot of people know that she does great damage, but when she gets multiple turns, her other skills, like she boosts her attack. She increases her attack gauge. If she uses her skill 1, she increases her attack gauge. Her skill 2 on her Wind Relic gives her critical strike rate increase and crit damage. She also grants herself evasion rate at the beginning of battle with her nimble steps, and she increases her crit damage for the rest of the battle. So if Kay gets a bunch of turns, like this, if you evade 6 times and then you go, you'll get 2 turns in a row. Well, 3 turns in a row. You'll get that turn. You'll take off a Golden Boar's Resolve, and then you'll do it again. So I've been soloed by Kay in the arena. Like, she just evades a crap ton, and then she just goes in and wipes your whole team with her skill 3 or her skill 2. And yeah, it gets out of control. It's pretty cool. So I really underestimated this, and I think this turns her into a whole different type of hero. Next up is Cormac. So Cormac's Chivalry 1, I think, is the most important one. Again, all of these additional chivalries make him stronger and stronger and stronger, but I think you get the most out of Cormac whenever he has his Chivalry 1. There's no mistaking that people know his Frost Relic is the best relic. If you have him Chivalry 1, his Frost Relic's skill 3 does even more damage based on his defense, which is the whole point of Cormac. So if you have the Chivalry 1, you're over 50% of the way there, in my opinion. And then all these other things like the defense percentage, that increases his damage output for sure. This one is on his Chivalry 1, not Chivalry 1, his passive 1, where he's doing even more additional damage based on defense. But that also applies, I believe, to this Chivalry 1, because it's an AoE ability that deals damage based on the targets, I think. Hold on, let me read it real quick. Given fake news. Oh, yeah. Sorry, it doesn't actually pertain to that. Anyway, all of these other things play into this, plays into the damage of Cormac, but the most important one is the Chivalry 1 for sure, because it amplifies the damage of the skill that he's spamming all the time on his Frost Relic. So Arthur, I think a lot of people have changed their opinion on Arthur. At first it was, wow, Arthur sucks, to actually Arthur has his place. And that's because his Storm Relic is fantastic against Frost enemies. He does crazy damage on his Frost Relic, on his Storm Relic to Frost enemies, which is really cool, which is why I think Chivalry 4 is the most important on him. Being able to amplify even more his skill 3 damage, he comes close to dealing as much damage as Bedivere against Frost enemies on his skill 3. Now, he needs a couple different things working for him, which is his other passives like Need to Be Up, which is the critical strike damage, and then also this one giving him the crit rate increase, increasing the buffs, because you're most likely building Arthur with only 40% crit rate to utilize this passive. So he's obviously not as good as Bedivere, but his damage output is very strong. And if you have this Chivalry 4, that's what's going to amplify the damage the most. His Chivalry 8 is good. However, you really need the Chiv 4 to make things just amp up for Arthur. So I think the Chivalry 4 is the most important thing when calculating Arthur's best in slot, which is when he's utilizing his skill 3 on his Storm Relic. So Sarah actually doesn't need any chivalries to be good in one sense, and then she does benefit from some of the chivalries if you want to use her as a healer. So Sarah is a strong healer. However, she has one of the most unique abilities on her second passive, which is this buff disruption. She's the only person in the game that has it. It's pretty nuts. And she has it on a passive, which is great. But that basically turns her more into a niche debuffer than a healer. The other issue is she's outclassed as a healer by Turan, in my opinion, and also Gillian, the legendary. But even from a rare standpoint, I think Turan is a better healer because she just adds a bunch of great buffs, where Sarah is just kind of like healing and removing debuffs, which is good. It's just, it hasn't been as needed as somebody like Turan. So Sarah doesn't need any chivalries to be good. You just need her second passive to be upgraded. But if you did want to utilize her as a healer, her Chivalry 4 is the most important. It allows her skill 1, her passive 1, to target every single person on the battlefield, all of your allies, including her, and dispelling up to 2 debuffs if that skill is fully leveled up. So that turns into a really nice ability. However, her second skill on her like Storm Relic already removes a debuff and heals all allies. So like this just allows you to remove a whole bunch of debuffs. The thing is I haven't seen a real need for that in the game. It's been rather limited on when that's useful, which is why I think she's outclassed by Turan. Okay, next up is Rosier. Now, Rosier, I think, has the best chivalry for all rares in the entire game, and that is her Chivalry 8. It is absolutely nuts. It turns her passive here when she uses her skill 3 from this ability, which is Fresh Crimson Blood, which is already good. So anytime you use your skill 3, it just has an additional chance to inflict bleed on an enemy. But it's only for 1 turn. If you get her to Chivalry 8, that turns into Bloody Frenzy, which is if she has Bloody Frenzy up when using her skill 3, she increases the duration of all DOT effects that are on an enemy by 1 turn. This is such a huge skill. The fact that it increases all DOT effects and not just bleed effects is insane. It would be amazing if it just did that, if it just increased bleed, but it's all DOTs. It's awesome. So she pairs really well with like Lancelot or Anguish, who put up chill or burn. They combine so well together because of this skill. It really spirals. So this I think is the most game-changing Chivalry 4 rares in Rosier. If you don't have her Chivalry 8, she's still good, but she is not God tier. She turns into God tier whenever she has this Chivalry 8. It is that important. So next up is Turan. Turan, as I mentioned when we were discussing Sarah, is the best rare healer in the game. She provides so many good buffs on all of her relics. All of her relics, the Fire, Frost, or Storm, are fantastic. Her skill 3 on her Storm Relic gives a bunch of great buffs. So most of her ability is tied to her relics, which is really nice because the only chivalry that truly matters on turn is this first chivalry, which is where she changes the weather to night and rain. That is such a game changer. It pairs so well with Morgan, the legendary. I've talked about this ad nauseum, but increasing the speed of your allies that get benefit from night and rain, also increasing their damage and decreasing the amount of damage they take. There's a limited amount of heroes that actually change weather in the game, and Turan not only changes the weather, but then also increases the amount of buffs that she gives on her skills whenever the weather is nighttime. So that Chivalry 1 is the most important. The other ones are really good, but they really don't amount to any, like, even close to her Chivalry 1. So that's really great. You only need 2 copies of Turan, and you've unlocked her full potential. Okay, next one is Accolon. So Accolon is a very niche character. He's extremely good in Frozen Plains. Very good. His skills, whenever he attacks somebody inflicted with defense decrease, so if the enemy has defense decrease, he inflicts this recovery disruption that can't be resisted. So you don't have to build him with accuracy, which is awesome. You do need to pair him with somebody that has defense decrease, but if you do that, he pretty much mitigates the entire boss's, skills, which is really cool. Now, when he gets Chivalry 3, that same passive that we just looked at with the recovery disruption then gains the ability to inflict damage taken increase, which also can't be resisted. So you've turned Akelon now into somebody who's a support, and you can make him a damage dealer. He's amplifying your damage. He's also not needing any kind of effect accuracy to land 2 really important debuffs, and you can just crank away on his damage output while you're still landing really awesome debuffs. So yeah, this turns him into from a support hero into a damage dealer, which is really awesome for Frozen Plains, which is his niche. And he also has a great leader skill in there too, which gives your team a 20% attack. So that's what makes Akelon fantastic, is that Chivalry 3. All right, so Arduin. Arduin's actually a really great damage dealer. She has some abnormal status as well with this polymorph, which is cool. And her first passive says 100% chance to trigger when using skill 2. She attacks a random enemy for 80% damage, and she inflicts polymorph for 1 turn. This is awesome because her Chivalry 8, whenever she counterattacks, she uses that skill 2. So she's doing really good damage. Her skill 2 multipliers on her relics are also awesome, like really high damage. It is random hits, so you're not hitting one person specifically for this high multiplier, but you're inflicting the polymorph, and you're also hitting for really high damage. So this is fantastic on all of her relics. All of her skill 2 relics have very high multipliers. Her Storm relic actually has the highest, but her Chivalry 8 allows her to counterattack with that skill 2. So if you pair her with somebody like Anya that puts up counterattack rate at the start of the battle with her second passive, you have a pretty good duo here with doing crazy amounts of damage. Everyone knows that Anya hits like a truck on her counterattack whenever you have this skill chivalried up, which is Chivalry 4. But yeah, so Arduin with Anya is just a killer combo. I'm really excited to utilize that combo, but you do need Chivalry 8 on your Arduin to make sure that your skill 2 is what you're countering with, because that's where the high multipliers are. But really amazing. I'm excited to showcase her, but I need to awaken her to 6-star to really unlock her full potential still too. All right, so Anguish. Anguish is also another hero that I felt like was similar to Arthur, where people are like, he's okay, but he falls off. The thing is he doesn't just work in Gorgos. I think he can be your main damage dealer in a bunch of dungeons where he's sneakily good. His second passive, where you're increasing the DOT taken, a lot of people sleep on this, but there's been tons of videos that I've seen out where Anguish is the main damage dealer and just taking down bosses. So he's really good in Gorgos, obviously, but he can be used in Frozen Plain to take down Audrey the Bear, even though Audrey has a DOT taken decrease of 90%. However, Anguish just still pumps out the DOTs with this DOT taken increase. Along with his high multipliers on his Frost Relic, his skill 3, which triggers this, is really nice. Now his first passive, this changes to when attacking. It used to be whenever he lands a DOT. So without his Chivalry 1, which is what I think unlocks his full potential, which is whenever he attacks, it unlocks this passive 1, which is effect accuracy increase 2, allows him to land the DOTs, and the attack increase 1. He's got good multipliers on his skill 3. He can do damage even if he's not landing the DOT. But if you can increase the potential of him landing that DOT while also buffing his attack, this is a really nice skill. So having this activate whenever, even if he doesn't land the DOT, is kind of what unlocks his potential, in my opinion. So Chivalry 1 for Anguish, and he's already halfway there. So Bodwin, this is an easy one. His Chivalry 3 grants the targeted ally abnormal status. The whole reason you're using Bodwin is as a replacement for Guinevere. Guinevere allows you to kind of have a cheat code for Crom Crouch whenever he eats people at the beginning. Bodwin is your rare replacement for her. And if you don't have this Chivalry 3, his second passive, where at the start of the battle it grants someone abnormal status immunity, this is not here. It's just a shield. So without this second line, he's useless. So, yeah, he needs his Chivalry 3 to be used. If you don't, you should just not use him. Now, honorable mention here, his Chivalry 8 is amazing. It's amazing. Being just granting all allies receive damage decrease 1 for 3 turns is already awesome, but then he gets this Divine Light, which removes everything. It removes debuffs, abnormal status, and DOT. That's an amazing skill. It's really great in Crom Crouch because he puts up all of those. And Crom Crouch actually puts up a lot of DOTs, which can kill you. So this is a great skill. The sad thing is it's on a 5-turn cooldown. I really think that they should reduce this to 3 turns. And Bodwin, I think, would be used in a couple more places. But the skill itself is still really, really good. But the Shiv 3 is what, unlocks the whole reason why you use Bodwin. All right, so Clementine is actually a really good hero to debate. She's very, very interesting. She is a pseudo healer with attack gauge decrease, and I actually think she can do a decent amount of damage. So here's the thing. If you want to use her as a support hero and a healer with a little bit of attack gauge reduction and things like that, I think her Chivalry 4 is really, really solid. It allows her first passive, whenever she uses that skill 2, to not only reduce the target's attack gauge, but then also heal somebody. This is important because on her skill 2, for most of her relics, she's removing some kind of debuff, whether it's a debuff, a DOT, or abnormal status based on the relic. She's also healing. So you get kind of like a double dip heal if you have Chivalry 4, which is really awesome. And you're still reducing a random target's attack gauge. Now, if you want her to just be a control hero and pump out some damage, the Chivalry 8, now this is all theory. As you see, I don't have it yet. But I'm really excited to actually level her up to Chivalry 8. I've heard some people say that you shouldn't do it. But I want to test this out because I think she could be the key to unlocking Stage 10 on the Keepsake Dungeon as your only damage dealer. I think you can utilize her, Anya in her Fire Relic, which I know sucks for a lot of people because that's a legendary relic that you have to find or summon. Be lucky enough to summon to unlock that. But if you have Anya paired with her, you can actually remove the abnormal status on her and also give her like crit damage up and things like that off of Anya's passive, where she is just triggering all the time whenever someone else like Gillian or Morgan is going in and reducing the attack gauge. You have the chance to trigger this, do a crap ton of damage, and then also reduce the target's attack gauge. Now, the thing is, it inflicts sleep on herself. But if you have someone like Anya that removes the abnormal status at 100% clip, then I think you just have crazy attack gauge reduction while pumping out some good damage. So that's all theory, but I'm really excited to see if it works. And, yeah, I really want that additional copy of Clementine so I can give that a test. All right, so your Ryans is next. Now, I think people are sleeping on this guy, and I really want to utilize him because he pumps out some pretty good damage. He's also, I think, one of 2 characters in the entire game that scales off of HP. I don't know if that's technically true, but I think it's true for rares. Him and Gareth are the two rares that have, attack and HP, max HP scaling. But I use him in favor dungeons, and he's only awakened 1, and he pumps out some pretty good damage. But a lot of his skills require him to sacrifice HP, and that can be a double-edged sword, which is why I think his Chivalry 8 is really important, because on his passive 1, whenever he's hit, with his Chivalry 8, he actually recovers his HP. And you're going to be building him with high HP because he's a tank unit. He scales off of that HP. So that HP recovery, I think, is going to go a long way to help him sustain and also amplify his damage. So it's actually really cool. So yeah, that's whenever it changes this passive to gain defense increase 2 and then also recover HP whenever he's hit. And that's on a 1-turn cooldown. So I think that's what really unlocks Urine's is his Chivalry 8. Once we actually get him fully leveled out, we'll put out a video, showing his potential and things like that, but that may be a ways away. All right, so a Soulday. A Soulday is actually a fantastic DOT remover. The problem is that application doesn't really matter in a whole lot of places. It just matters in Gorgos, and then it also matters in Cromcrouch. In Gorgos, though, she's kind of outclassed by Degerit, which is an uncommon. So you don't really use her there. Cromcrouch, I think she does have some really good application, and I think that's probably where she's best. Now, I'm assuming the game is going to be putting out more content with DOTs being inflicted on your team, and if so, Soulday is going to be fantastic there. I think her Chivalry 3 is great. This is a complete change to what she's meant to do, which is remove DOTs. But the Chivalry 3 allows you to have a pseudo Rosier just on Chivalry 3. Now, the problem is cooldown's 3 turns, but the fact that you can increase every DOT means that if you don't have Rosier Chivalry 8, you can pair her still with Anguish, or you can pair her with Lancelot, and you still might be able to get similar results at a slower clip. I think Rosier really, speeds things up. But this is a really great ability. And then on her Fire Relic, she has a big heal. So you can heal everybody, and then you can also increase the duration of DOTs. So that's something to mention about a Soulday, except, DOT removal isn't really a thing, and the extension of stuff is completely outclassed by Lancelot and Rosier. So she's kind of like in this weird limbo state where she's good, she's just not great, where other heroes are great at those things. Okay, so next up is Ban. So I really like his Chivalry 8. This turns him into a damage dealer that allows him to have sustain, because anytime he crits, this is applied to his second passive. So he needs to crit. But if he does, if he's Chivalry 8, he gets this Fierce Blade for 2 turns, which is an increase in crit damage by 20%, and he has a 100% chance to activate Drain, which is lifesteal. So the amount of damage that he does, he'll get back a percentage based on his Drain. The other buff that he gets is Bloody Teeth, so it increases the amount of Drain that you get, so you'll get even more lifesteal. I think this is a really important skill for him. Most damage dealers are, they're glass cannons, so if you have the ability to then keep him topped up, I think this is a great Chivalry. The problem is, Ban used to be apparently really good. I hadn't played the game whenever this was the case, but apparently they reduced his multipliers and all of those things, and it kind of just took the wind out of his sails. So if they ever bump up his multipliers again, he could end up being really good. But on paper, this is a great addition to his kit if you get him Chivalry 8. So next up is Boars. Boars is, I think, a little bit slept on. If you have him Chivalry 3, he is the only person in the game, I believe, that has a 100% guaranteed counterattack buff. Urian's, who we kind of just talked about, on his skill 3 for his relics, he has a 50% chance to give everybody counterattack, which is 100% chance to counterattack, but he only has a 50% chance to put it on your enemies. Not on your enemies, on your allies. Boars, however, on his Chivalry 3, has the ability to put counterattack on all of your allies for 2 turns. We've already talked about how Arduin is fantastic with her Chivalry 8, counterattacking with that skill 2. So if you use boars in her, you have a 100% chance to counterattack every time she's hit, which is awesome. And then also pairing boars with Anya can be really good. The issue with boars is he needs to go. He needs to activate his skill 3 to put this up. Now, his other passives pair really well with this, because at the start of the battle, you increase your counterattack damage. You give the buff counterattack damage 3, which is awesome. And he also increases his speed with increased speed 1 for 1 turn at the start of the battle. The problem with boars is he is so slow. It's like, I think his base speed is 97, which is a problem because Morgan, the fastest character in the game, is 130. And Morgan also has the ability to reduce attack gauge. So, yeah, it's just a bummer that boars is so slow, because I think he would have some pretty real potential if he was fast enough to go in at the beginning of the game, put up this counterattack damage, and rip off his skill 3 to give everyone counterattack. I think it would be really, really cool. But with him being too slow, I don't think it would work. He just gets so outsped by Morgan that the whole thing kind of just goes away. But the Chivalry 3 is very good. The fact that this is the only thing in the game that gives 100% chance for all allies to have counterattack is really, really good. So if anyone ever finds a way to allow him to go first, I think that would be a really, really cool team. Now, these next couple of heroes I think are pretty bad. So take what we're talking about here with a grain of salt. But Frederick, his Chivalry 8 is very good. This is a great just support ability. Anytime he uses a recovery skill, he grants all allies recovery over time and attack increase too. That's just a really good support ability. I don't think he's that good. He's a really weird kind of character. Like, he transfers buffs from himself to other allies. He can steal buffs. So, yeah, it's a weird dynamic with him. But his Chivalry 8 is good. All right, so Cryodan. Cryodan also, I think the only thing that makes this hero good is the fact that they can change the weather to night and squall. This is obviously outclassed by Turan, who changes the weather to night and rain. So I don't really know where this hero would fit. If you don't want to use Turan, okay. But I think this is the only thing that really makes this hero good. The Chivalry 8 is nice. This Heartless Strike, dealing 8% of target's max HP, is a good ability. The problem is, in order to trigger this, the hero or enemy that you're targeting needs to have abnormal status up to trigger that. So it's very conditional, which is why I didn't really include it here. I think just the weather change is what makes Cryodan, unique. I don't think anyone else in the game can change the weather to squall. Well, night and squall. There might be someone who can change it to squall, but night and squall is Cryodan. Nicholas, I think, is probably the worst hero in the game. He just really stinks, but his Chivalry 1 is his most important skill, because his second passive does nothing unless he has stealth, and his first passive, if you don't have the Chivalry 1, you can't get it up to 100%. So Without the Chivalry 1, I think Nicholas is not only bad, but he's also inconsistent. So that stinks. So if you get him Chivalry 1, you have the ability to get his chance of going into stealth up to 100%, which is good because then it unlocks his second passive. But yeah, Nicholas is a real stinker in my opinion. Ralph, this is another guy. He's got some interesting mechanics. Like anytime someone dies, he gives a bunch of buffs to himself, to the allies, all of those things. It's really, really cool. And if he's the last person standing, he has some really crazy abilities. But I think it's just so hard to have this actually work that I don't think Ralph is very good. But I think his first skill is good. Whenever an ally dies, he'll end up granting all of the remaining allies except himself, so 2 other allies with to battle, and whenever they attack, they'll gain attack increase 3, which is a huge buff, and so is hit accuracy 3. Now, on the flip side, they damage themselves by 20% of their max HP, so it's a double-edged sword, but I do think this is a really cool, good, unique ability, but Ralph isn't good, so take that with a grain of salt. Now, this last hero, I actually like. This is an interesting hero, which is Gareth. So Gareth has a really cool ability, which is ignore resistance. At the start of the battle, you can ignore everyone's effect resistance whenever applying any kind of debuff. Sadly, it's only for 1 turn, but he also grants himself effect accuracy increase too, which is awesome. So this is a bit of an underrated passive, but it does tie into his Chivalry 8, which is what we're going to talk about. And then his skill 2 is whatever. But his Chivalry 8, he grants himself Cyclone Fist for the rest of the battle. And Cyclone Fist says if the target has immunity when attacking, he attacks one enemy and he inflicts damage based on 10% of his max HP. It's not their max HP, which could be good or bad. I think it'd be busted in boss fights, which is why it's his HP. But this is a really cool ability because it allows him to be a decent damage dealer on bosses, I think, because most bosses have some form of immunity, right? There's a lot of them out there. There is debuff immunity, DOT immunity, abnormal status immunity, which is one of the biggest ones with bosses. So they'll always have immunity up. That means that every time that Gareth is attacking, he's going to do that additional multiplier of 10% of his max HP. And Gareth is the other hero, like Urian's, that actually scales off of attack and max HP. So you can really crank up his max HP and then just do 10% of that whenever he's doing his skills on bosses. That's all theory. I don't have him Chivalry 8 yet, but I think this hero is kind of interesting. I think this hero actually can be really good in CVC, so I'm interested in to see what he can do. But yeah, I guess we'll see in the future. Anyway, guys, this is a longer video, but I hope you had fun watching it. I enjoyed kind of prepping for this and seeing all of the unique chivalries that these heroes have and what kind of makes them really, really good. So that's all I have for you today. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll catch you on the next one. See ya.